our distinguished guest from the Altoona Mirror and from 1450 ESPN Radio State College, 1430 ESPN Radio in Altoona. His name is Cory Giger, and he joins us now on the Nittany Lion Sports Report. Cory, how are you?
I'm great, Bob, and I didn't catch all of that conversation, but I'm figuring what you're talking about is, should App State have scored that touchdown? Because when they scored, they gave Penn State a lot of time, and I've heard a lot of fans say that over the past couple of days. So I am curious to hear, what you guys think. To me, with that amount of time left, that's still, you get in the end zone. You still got to get in the end zone. If it's 30, 40 seconds left, but I certainly do understand the thought process, because if he gets out of bounds and they milk the clock, they could have just kicked a game-winning field goal and left Penn State no time.
Well, it's true. I mean, there was, about $1.40 left in that football game. Penn State had just the one timeout, or was it two, as you remember it, Cory?
I think Penn State had one at that point.
So at that point, you're probably taking that down to 30, 20 seconds, even if they just kneel the football 3 times.
Yeah, right. But you're on the road, and you come down to a kicker, but it would have been a chip shot. Now, to me, look, I think you scored there, but I also think that App State's coach is going to kick himself for the rest of his career for not going for it on 4th and 4 with 20 seconds to go from the Penn State 39. They were destroying Penn State's defense. They were getting everything that they wanted. The way I figure, Bob, he had a 15 to 20% chance of making a 56-yard field goal on the road. It may have been 10% chance. They probably had a 50 to 60% chance of converting 4th and 4. Then you get up, there's 12 seconds to go, you spike the ball, you run another play, maybe you get another handful of yards, then you call a timeout and kick what might have been a 43, 44-yard field goal. I just think that coach, and I know it sounds unfair because they had their kids extremely well prepared, but they lost the game. And their coach made a key decision, and I think a big mistake at the end of that game he didn't just go with the percentages. He's out there trying a 56-yard field goal. You have virtually no chance of making that kick. I know it was long enough, but I really think that coach, who knows if he had made a 43, 44-yard field goal either, but I think the percentages would have been a hell of a lot better had he tried it there.
That's really interesting. It's the age-old question about in the analytics space as well as, that 4th down, should you go for it? Big moment like that. I agree with you. I don't know if that's where you pull in the Harvard mathematicians. I think on that particular 4th down, I think that's exactly the right decision, that you go for it and you keep pumping and even those last 2 or 3 drives, a couple wheel routes where either the linebackers or in zone coverage, Penn State could not seem to handle those receivers coming out of the slot to the sideline. And you saw on the first play of that drive, the little touch pass over the top, they were getting a lot of ground gained through that particular type of play. And I guess it leads me to my next portion of the questioning here is what's going on in the secondary. This is something that we thought, of course, with Garrett Taylor coming in and being new there, but by and large, the portion of the defense where you had the most experience. What did you see from your vantage point of the Penn State defensive backs?
Couple things. James Franklin pointed out App State had a good game plan. They got rid of the ball quickly, and that is good. Penn State got very little pressure on their quarterback. Now, Kevin Givens wasn't playing, and you would think that him playing would have made some difference. But Kevin Givens is not Superman either. So let me just preface everything by saying I went into this season thinking that Penn State's defense was not going to be very good. I just don't. I have major questions. They got lit up at times in the Big Ten last year, and they lost 8 starters. So I know we all just kind of want to buy into all this hype. Hey, recruit. These guys are great. They're young. They're going to be awesome. Well, they're not yet, and they haven't proven anything. And you got to replace a ton of guys, and then you've got guys like Ryan Buckholtz retiring, and Givens is out. The question becomes, Bob, did they have a bad game, or did they have a bad quarter? Because they were really good for the first 3 quarters, and I'll give them credit for that. But if you're not going to pressure the quarterback and your front 7 really I don't think is very good at all anyway, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I mean, if App State is moving the ball on you for 450 yards, good luck playing Wisconsin. Good luck playing somebody that is really competent offensively, because they've got a lot of work to do on that side of the ball before they get up against some of those kind of teams.
Hey, Cory, this is Tyler Gehlhaus. Quick question as we stay on the defensive side of the ball. We saw Micah Parsons get in a little bit here and there. We talk about lack of pass rush. Is this an answer that we could see maybe starting with the game this Saturday at Pitt, that he's getting more time strictly for pass rushing downs on 3rd and longs if, the situation presents itself?
That's a good question. I think that Brent Pry is going to have to try a lot of different things. Now, Givens, we think, is going to be back. Franklin said, yeah, I hope so. I guess that means he's going to be back. Who knows? I think this team, with this front seven, with really only one high-quality defensive tackle, and that's Kevin Givens. But even he's only used to playing 30 or 40 snaps a game, so he's going to have to play a lot more. With that front seven, guys, I think they're going to have to try a lot of different things, a lot of different personnel groupings, a lot of disguises, a lot of stunts, because I just have major questions about those guys going up against the type of talent that they're going to go up against later on. App State's offensive linemen averaged 283 pounds. Now think about that, 283. That's not going to be what you're going to face week in and week out. Now, specifically on your Parsons thing, I am not a recruiting guy. Maybe you guys are. Maybe your listeners are. Awesome. If people want to sell out and talk about, hey, recruits this, recruits that, and talk about how great they're going to be, maybe they will. Maybe Michael Parsons will be LeVar Arrington. Maybe he'll be the greatest linebacker in the history of the world. He's not yet. He hasn't proven it. He hasn't done anything. So I just don't put a lot of stock into this talk of, hey, let's try this guy and see what he can do, and maybe he'll be a big difference. Well, yeah, maybe he will, but he's also an 18-year-old kid who's never played a college game before, and now he's got to go on the road. And so again, I'm not coming down on Micah Parsons. I'm talking about any freshman linebacker. I don't care if you're a 0-star or a 100-star recruit. Until you get on the field in that speed, in that environment, and show something, I got to wait to see it before I start to, put all this faith that these guys are going to be able to accomplish these things.
Well, somewhat related to that, one of those things that I think we need to see a lot more of before we can have some confidence in it is some of the wild formations that they put at that front four on the defensive side of the football. And that's at times putting 3 ends on the field, putting Tony out there with Gross Matos and having Sharif Miller opposite there, because they simply did not have confidence in your Fred Hanserts of the world, in PJ Mustipher coming in and playing limited snaps, Rob Windsor, etc. Do you think that is viable on a go-forward basis on this defensive line?
I think they try whatever they can. They do not have the experienced personnel to just go out and say, these are our 4 linemen, these are our 3 linebackers, and then these are our specific backups. I don't think they have that. They've got some young guys that can fill into those spots later on, and maybe by the time the Big Ten season rolls around, they can. But as I mentioned earlier, I think there's going to have to be a lot of outside-the-box thinking here. You get your best players on the field. With all due respect to Jan Johnson, a lot of heart and character. I don't see him as a starting Big Ten linebacker, not middle linebacker. So they're going to have to do things. If you guys remember, if your listeners remember, 10, 11 years ago, they put Tim Shaw because they had phenomenal linebackers, and Tim Shaw was a great linebacker, but they put him as a stand-up defensive end. Well, he was an undersized defensive end, but he ended up doing really well in that hybrid type of role because I think at the time they had Posluszny, Dan Connor. I mean, he couldn't get on the field as a linebacker. So whatever they do, they've got to get their best players on the field on defense. Now, the opener, yeah, they're trying a lot of young guys, and they'll be trying a lot of young guys this week against Pitt, and then they've got Kent State to try to figure things out, and Illinois should be dreadful. So you've got some time. You've got that's what these weeks early in the season are for, to try to mix and match. But all I'm saying is they've got a lot of mixing and matching and trying to do over the next month or so, because you start to circle that calendar and Ohio State's out there really just a few weeks away. How is that defense going to be ready for them?
You made great points, Cory. Last question. I know you got to get going. Follow you on Twitter, and I saw some of your tweets recently about Pat Narduzzi, out at University of Pittsburgh head coach. Could you elaborate on some of those tweets? I know he was talking about he may have been talking down about Albany a little bit. I really didn't read into it too much, but it did catch my eye. I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that a little.
Yeah, and I took a lot of heat, obviously, from Pitt fans. It's not the end of the world, but there are a lot of points here to be made on one discussion, and that is, Pat Narduzzi said, obviously it's hard to get everybody up for a game like Albany. Okay, that's fine. That's the truth. Why does he have to mention Albany? I mean, let's try to look at this from those kids' perspectives, from the Albany kids' perspective. They're out there busting their rear, and they gotta read about a Division I football coach said, our players weren't even up for you. Okay, I don't like that. I think that's disrespectful to the opponent. I think that's disrespectful to the sport. And a lot of Pitt fans thought I was nuts. And most people didn't read anything into it. And I just don't like it. I cover small Division I basketball, St. Francis. They play Duke. They play Louisville. And when they get beat by 40, those coaches come out and are glowingly positive about St. Francis. I think that's the way to come out and say, well, our guys weren't up to play St. Francis. Come on. I will champion the little guy here because the little guy is a big part of college sports. And I know people like Jade Billis and others just want to focus on the big guys and forget about the little guys and cut Division I in half. But you know what? You'd better damn well respect the little guy, because every now and then they're going to sneak up and beat you. And so the bigger component of all this is James Franklin tries to keep every game, he tries to treat every game like it's a 1-week situation. And I have great respect for that. Now, is he being completely, fully, 100% honest with us about, oh, this is our Super Bowl this week? I don't know. Probably not. But and when James Franklin said what he said last year about Akron, I didn't really like that either. There's no sense in bringing up the name of an opponent out of nowhere. Pat Narduzzi did this last year about William and Mary. He said something to the effect after a close win. He said, well, it's not like we were playing William and Mary out there. What the hell? Well, what do you got to mention William and Mary for? As a colleague of mine wrote, they share a facility with the Steelers. Mike Tomlin went to William and Mary. So what purpose would you have in saying something like that about a little guy? So, like I said, maybe I'm reading too much into it, and I took a lot of heat from Pitt fans. But I don't like to see the little guy in college sports get treated like that, or a coach saying, "Now why should we get up for them?" I mean, come on. I think you got to show them a little bit more respect than that.
Well, I appreciate and respect you calling it like it is. I mean, I respect you for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is you've given me a shot in the past, hosted your show while you've been on vacation. So I have appreciated that in past years. But also to sit right there in Altoona, halfway between Pittsburgh and Penn State, and call them for what you believe there, that's pretty darn good stuff there, Cory. And we appreciate you taking
Bob,
some time.
You know this. A lot of people probably think I'm nuts, and maybe I am sometimes, but I'm going to speak my mind, and if people don't like it, that's their problem.
Hey, you know what? It's why we love having you on, and we appreciate you taking a few minutes on this Tuesday evening.
All right, enjoy it, fellas.
All right, you too.